So Now Is Good, about which I didn't know anything before, but of course it's based on a very, very popular novel, it turns out. So it's based on a novel by Jenny Downham, which is called Before I Die. And it's about a young girl who is facing what appears to be terminal illness and facing a finite future with apparently infinite dreams. Dakota Fanning is the central character. She's attempting to get everything that she wants into what life she has. And she decides very early on in the movie that she's not going to take any more treatment because the treatment makes her feel terrible. Actually, what she'd rather do is put the treatment aside and live the life that she has to the full and to tick off things on what's generally referred to as a bucket list. In fact, there was that film, Bucket List. Although she keeps telling her dad that she doesn't have a bucket list. So there's a number of things that she wants to do, and they involve things like, for example, taking recreational drugs as opposed to taking medicinal drugs, meeting a boy, and and having a full relationship for the first time. Flying is one. There's a number of things that she wants to do. So at a certain point in the story, she meets her neighbour, who is unbelievably handsome and looks like he might actually be the first person who sees her for herself rather than for her illness. Here's a clip.
Tessa? Right, don't move. Don't move, I think you fainted. Are you diabetic? Do you need sugar? Have some of this.
It's flat.
Your toaster, please.
You say that like it's a bad thing. Okay, excellent. Not embarrassed at all.
No, look, it's cool, all right? I mean, I've never had that effect on someone before. I kind of like it.
It's a nice garden.
Yeah, thanks, that's kind of my thing. It keeps my mum happy.
About your dad?
It's just two of us.
I should get home.
Okay, do you need help?
It's not exactly far.
So anytime you got something to burn?
Or I just want to pass out in front of someone.
You know where to come.
So you could hear to some extent from the kind of the music that was coming in the background, the schmaltzy element here. And the thing with this story is that clearly the potential to be incredibly mawkish and incredibly schmaltzy is there. I mean, obviously, you start thinking of things like Love Story, and you start thinking of things like The Bucket List, and when you look at the potential for rank sentimentality, it is enormous. And it would be wrong to say that this shies away from or sidesteps rank sentimentality. It doesn't. It clearly embraces it, and it is part of the way in which the story is told. The interesting thing about it is that there's a part of me that's thinking of, okay, rank sentimentality, rank mawkishness and all that kind of stuff, and, and I'm in the sugar coating and I'm having a problem with it. But there is more to the film than that. And the central more to itness is Paddy Considine as her dad. Now, Paddy Considine, I think, comes with a weight. Whenever you see him in a film, he has that thing of, he steps up to the mark and he lifts things up a little bit.
And he steps up to the mark, and in the case of the Bourne films, doesn't last much longer after that.
No, but wasn't he the most convincing?
Fantastic. most convincing Guardian journalist
you've ever seen. You thought it was all just to do with being a liberal lefty.
What was interesting when he came in on the show for Tyrannosaur,
he was terribly self-effacing.
He was sort of embarrassed about promoting his own movie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He was terribly self-effacing and wasn't something. So anyway, what happens is I'm sitting there watching the film and I'm listening to some of that kind of mawkish music. And as I said, I don't know the book, but you assure me that in fact the book is a huge.
Oh, it was huge. Yes, absolutely. With Teenage a couple of years ago, and it's still extremely popular, and everybody was reading this book.
Right, and so it popular in the same way that Twilight. Well, again, I'm admitting
same kind of audience.
Same type of audience. Okay. Well, consequently, watching the movie as a 50-year-old bloke. Not quite 50, but just about to be 50.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. No, fine.
Me the same.
Yeah, 42. So I'm thinking, okay, well, there's that part of the movie which is aimed at that particular demographic, and that's not particularly working for me. But literally, Paddy Considine walks on screen, and suddenly it's like I'm there. And there's a couple of scenes with Paddy Considine in which I would be lying if I said I didn't openly start to weep. Because suddenly it's almost as if the movie is looking at this audience over here, and it's probably working for all of them, and then it suddenly turns itself towards me, and you have that and Olivia Williams together, and suddenly we get the scenes with the and it delivers this kind of peculiar sucker punch. So
Well, presumably there are some of the audience who will relate to the daughter,
no, that's what I'm saying.
and you are relating to the father.
That's exactly what I'm saying. My point about it is that in the end, it's almost as if the movie's it's looking for some parts towards one part of the audience and it's working there, and then it suddenly turns itself towards me. And having Paddy Considine in there and Olivia Williams is a stroke of genius, because literally when they do their scenes, it suddenly all comes out. And also, it does. It's not entirely shying away from the harsh realities of the situation. It's not just kind of completely making everything glamorous and amorphous. I mean, yes, it is sugary. It's sugary. Yes, it is saccharine coated. Yes, it is made as a sort of mainstream teen melodrama. All those things are true. And as I said, I don't know the book, so I can't tell you how faithful it is to the book. What I can tell you is that much as it would, I'd like to be, oh yes, well, just sentimental stuff. There was whole sections of it indeed, when Paddy Considine was on screen, being absolutely brilliant as the dad, and then and suddenly I was locked into it.
My in-house film reviewer, who has read the book, was thoroughly impressed and was encouraging was encouraging me to go and see it, and I have absolutely no intention of seeing it because the emotional trauma at the heart of the film. And she told me a couple of the lines, one that the brother says, one that the father says, which I won't do because you need to hear it in context. And as soon as she told me that, I thought, no, absolutely, this is going to be too upsetting. So I'm not going to go.
I suppose the thing is, there have to be ways of doing those stories in a way which is cinematic and does work. And obviously, they're going to involve sentimentality, and obviously, they're going to involve mawkishness, and obviously, they're going to be pulling on your heartstrings and all that stuff. And yes, all those things are true. And I have to say, the sort of the critic instinct in me sort of riles against it, because you just think, well, this is emotional manipulation. Is it anything more than that? But on the other hand, when the emotional manipulation is done well, and you're thinking, well, I'm watching this and I'm crying, despite the fact that I feel, I feel manipulated. You have to admit it's doing a job. And I do think, for me, it was largely down to the fact that Paddy Considine is so good and does what he's meant to do so well.
And how's Dakota Fanning? The clip that we played, her English accent sounded rather good.
I think absolutely fine. I mean, I think she's a very good actress anyway, and she's proved herself very versatile. She was in the Runaways from not so long ago, and she's, she steps up to the mark very well. And actually, because when you're up against Paddy Considine and Olivia Williams, when you're up against that kind of class of actor, if you're letting the side down, everyone is going to notice. But she doesn't. I know I'm not the target audience for the film, and I know that huge parts of me sort of rail against it. But I have to be honest, there were parts of it that worked and that demonstrated that it was doing what it was meant to be doing. And it's interesting that you said your in-house film critic thought that it worked, because that, I presume, is the target audience.
Yes, the target audience who read the book, I think, will be slightly overwhelmed by the film, but in a good way.
Okay.
And if you want an evening of being completely upset and miserable and crying your eyes out, this is exactly the film.
But if you want to just watch a bunch of stuff, Savages is out now.